Okay, good morning. I am so excited if you have tuned in to our Empowered Education presentation. Um, we are starting right on time today, so I'm going to take the time to let everybody, log on and all of that. So while I take some time. I just want to say I hope that you have been enjoying this ISM series. This is the second to last week of our ISM series. Today we're going to be talking about ageism and its correlation with sexual violence. If you missed our other presentations, such as the one on racism, sexism, elitism, or classism, be sure to check those out. They are always linked on our Facebook page under our video section. And even if you have seen them, share your favorite ones with your friends. We always challenge you to tell at least 10 friends about our content and provide them with the information to be able to promote change and create lasting change by empowering yourself and others. Um, let's go ahead and get started. All right. Okay, so hello, my name is Danielle, and I am the education specialist here at the Turning Point Rape Crisis Center. I hope that you guys are having a wonderful morning. It is almost the weekend, so I'm glad that you decided to take the time to watch our presentation. So, this is our presentation, It Takes Unity. It's a bystander's guide on being empowered and educated, because once we're educated about the problem, we can be the change to fix it and support survivors along the way. So here at the Turning Point, we have a 24-hour crisis hotline. The number is 1-800-886-7273. And at that number, you can call rain, shine, 2 a.m., 2 p.m., any time of the day. There will be an advocate on that line that will be able to answer any questions you have revolving around sexual violence, getting involved with counseling, and getting set up a SANE exam or anything like that. So that brings me to our first point of our services. We offer counseling, free counseling for our for survivors and their friends and family members. All of our services are 100% free. We believe that survivors shouldn't have to worry about paying for services after a traumatic event. So we offer counseling, free counseling for survivors of sexual violence and their friends and family members so that everybody can be supported through this time and be able to truly empower one another and work through this trauma together. So next thing we offer is advocacy, which is where we go into the hospital and we support survivors during their SANE exams. So we go and we let them know their rights. We get them set up with resources. We get them their information in case they want to get involved with counseling. Overall, we're there to support the survivor and help the SANE nurse in any way we can. Shout out to our SANE nurses because they are rock stars and the superheroes of our organization. But that is advocacy. So then the next thing we provide is this education, where we go into the community and on different platforms and talk about ways to prevent sexual violence and its prevalence, its causes, risk factors, protective factors, and try and spread knowledge and truth about sexual violence so that we can be the change to fix it. So our mission is to highlight the impact of sexual violence on individuals and our community through education programs that foster hope, encourage change, and prevent sexual violence. Join us in the fight against sexual violence. The Turning Point is committed to reducing the prevalence of sexual violence in our community. We firmly believe that for this change to occur, each person has a responsibility and must do their part to prevent sexual violence. So, on to today's topic, ageism. So, you're going to think, or you may be thinking, What does ageism have to do with sexual violence? Well, we're talking about the isms. This is our isms series. As I said at the beginning, if you haven't seen our other presentations on the isms, be sure to check those out because they are very informative and they have a lot of great resources in them. But when we're talking about ageism, I'm going to define it, but we're going to be specifically talking about two age demographics, two vulnerable age demographics, and that is children and elderly people. So these are the two things that we're going to be talking about in correlation with ageism. So, sexual violence and the isms. Discussions about intersecting identities, oppression, and social justice have been a part of anti-violence movements for a long time. Many movement members have adopted a framework for discussing the continuum of sexual violence within the context of oppression and isms. The same attitudes and behaviors that allow for sexual violence in our culture are reinforced and rooted in sexism, racism, ableism, ageism, elitism, and more. There is a theme of intolerance towards the other who is different from the members of a majority group. So, the definition of ageism. Ageism, also spelled ageism, is stereotyping and or discrimination against individuals or groups on the basis of their age. This may be casual or systematic. So, getting into the public health model. So, here today in this presentation, we are going to define the problem and we're going to identify the risk and protective factors. Now, when we talk about the public health model, we want to be able to develop and test prevention strategies and ensure widespread adoption. So for us, what we do is provide as much information about the issue as we can and try and touch on protective mechanisms and things that can help and try and spread the information as far as we can and challenge you all to spread the information as far as you can. That way we can create lasting change. So every 9 minutes, Child Protective Services substantiates or finds evidence for a claim of sexual abuse. Sexual violence starts early. 1 in 3 female rape victims experienced it for the first time between 11 to 17 years old, and 1 in 8 reported that it occurred before age 10. Nearly 1 in 4 male rape victims experienced it for the first time between 11 and 17 years old, and about 1 in 4 reported that it occurred before age 10. So we're seeing a theme of sexual violence starting early in youth and when we're still developing. And this is like a population that can sometimes not have a voice. If you don't have protective factors in place, those risk factors really come through. So how big is the problem? Child abuse and neglect are common. At least 1 in 7 children have experienced child abuse and or neglect in the past year, and it is likely an underestimate. So in 2018, nearly 1,770 children died of abuse and neglect in the United States. Children living in poverty experience more abuse and neglect. Rates of child abuse and neglect are 5 times higher for children in families with low socioeconomic status compared to children in families with higher socioeconomic status. So, let's define child sexual abuse. So sexual abuse involves pressuring or forcing a child to engage in sexual acts. It includes behaviors such as fondling, penetration, and exposing a child to other sexual activities. So let's get into the risk factors for perpetration and break it down. So individual risk factors. Parents' lack of understanding of children's needs, child development and parenting skills, parental history of child abuse or neglect, substance abuse and or mental health issues including depression in the family, parental characteristics such as young age, low education, single parenthood, large number of dependent children, and low income, non-biological transient caregivers in the home, for example, a mother's male partner or a father's female partner. Parental thoughts and emotions that tend to support or justify maltreatment behaviors. And then family risk factors are social isolation, family stress, separation or divorce, and violence, including intimate partner violence. and parenting stress, poor parent-child relationships, and negative interactions. And then the community risk factors are community violence, concentrated neighborhood disadvantage, such as high poverty, high unemployment rates, and high density of alcohol outlets, and poor social connections. So, protective factors for child abuse and neglect. So, protective factors may lessen the likelihood of children being abused or neglected. Identifying and understanding protective factors are equally as important as researching risk factors. So, family protective factors are a supportive environment, family environment, and social networks, concrete support for basic needs, nurturing parenting skills, stable family relationships, household rules and child monitoring, parental employment, parental education, adequate housing, access to health care and social services, caring adults outside the family who can serve as role models or mentors. And for community protective factors, communities that support parents and take responsibility for preventing abuse. That one's a huge one. I always forget the name, but there was a case that kind of sparked the Child Protective Services movement, where the community knew that abuse was going on in the home, but felt it wasn't their place or it wasn't their business, and so they didn't get involved, and the child ended up dying. And we see so many stories like that still today. There are popular Netflix series about children who were being abused and slipped through the cracks. And so many people saw the abuse, didn't say anything or tried to say things and got shut down, so on and so forth. But we have to, as a community, take responsibility for seeing something and saying something. So, who are the perpetrators? Who are the perpetrators? So, child victims often know the perpetrator. So, among cases of child sexual abuse reported to law enforcement, mind you, not all cases get reported to law enforcement. Actually, a small percentage of cases get reported to law enforcement. 93% are known to the victim. 7% are a stranger, 59% are acquaintances, and 34% are family members. 34%. That is a little bit over a third of these cases for family members. And so that's why it goes back to that family relationship, protective factors, being able to, as a parent, be like, I've suffered abuse. I need to get help for my abuse so that I don't pass this down to my kid and I don't perpetuate that abuse that I had growing up. Or even watching, just because somebody's a family member doesn't mean that you shouldn't watch them the same that you would a stranger or an acquaintance or a friend that you would bring around your child. It's so important to really be mindful and watch and create protective mechanisms around your children and who you allow around them. Elder sexual abuse. Now we're going to switch gears. So we talked about child sexual abuse. Now we're going to be talking about elder sexual abuse. So elder sexual abuse involves forced or unwanted sexual interaction of any kind with an older adult. This may include unwanted sexual contact or penetration or non-contact acts such as sexual harassment. Elder abuse is a widespread reality across the world. There's no evidence of any culture or society where older people are not subject to abuse, violence, and neglect. Such violations of the dignity of older people adopt various forms. They may be in physical, sexual, psychological, or financial ways and may take place both in people's own house and in public settings such as urban spaces, health services, care homes, etc. Older people with care needs and those suffering other forms of discrimination on the basis of gender identity, disability, sexual orientation, or race, among others, are more vulnerable to abuse, violence, and neglect. In the context of care, older people are known to face situations of great vulnerability driven by the underfunding of services, ageist attitudes, lack of training, and overburdening of care professionals. Ageism and the resulting lack of societal awareness render elder abuse and more generally older victims of crime invisible. For instance, older women who suffer abuse and violence are less likely to report to police and justice services, whom have often tended to treat older women differently because of their age. Older people suffer abuse, violence, and neglect most often in silence, with protection services failing to reach out to them. At the same time, ageism pushes older victims into a state of powerlessness and resignation that acts effectively as a barrier to reporting and seeking protection. So, this is so important because I really want to show um, both these populations and how vulnerable they are and how important it is to speak up for those who can't speak up for themselves. So, risk factors of perpetration. So, on the individual level, a current diagnosis of mental illness, current abuse of alcohol, high levels of hostility, poor or inadequate preparation or training for caregiving responsibilities, assumption of caregiving responsibilities at an early age, inadequate coping skills, exposure to abuse as a child, relationship level is high financial and emotional dependence upon a vulnerable elder, past experience of disruptive behavior, lack of social support, and lack of formal support. And then on the community level, formal services such as respite care for those providing services or providing care to elders are limited, inaccessible, or unavailable. So, going further into risk factors for perpetration, on the societal level, a culture where there's high tolerance and acceptance of aggressive behavior, healthcare personnel, guardians, and other agents are given greater freedom and routine care and decision making. Family members are expected to care for elders without seeking help from others, and persons are encouraged to endure suffering and remain silent regarding their pains and their negative beliefs about aging and elders. In addition to the above factors, there are also specific characteristics of institutional settings that can increase the risk for perpetration of vulnerable elders, including unsympathetic or negative attitudes towards residents, chronic staffing problems, a lack of administrative oversight, staff burnout, and stressful working conditions. So, protective factors. So protective factors for elder abuse. Protective factors reduce the risk for perpetrating abuse and neglect. Protective factors have not been studied as extensively or as rigorously as risk factors. However, identifying and understanding protective factors are equally as important as researching risk factors. Research is needed to determine whether these factors do indeed buffer elders from abuse. Relationship level protective factors are having numerous strong relationships with people of varying social status. And then community level is coordination of resources and services among community agencies and organizations that serve the elderly population and their caregivers. Higher levels of community cohesion and a strong sense of community or community identity, and then higher levels of community functionality and greater collective efficiency. I can't speak today. Protective factors within institutional settings can include the following: effective monitoring systems, solid institutional policies and procedures regarding patient care, regular training on elder abuse and neglect for employees, education and clear guidance on durable power of attorney and how it is to be used, and regular visits by family members, volunteers, and social workers. So, are there any questions? So, I hope that you enjoyed this presentation. If you have any questions, always be free to leave a comment down below and we will get back to you immediately on any questions or anything you wanted further developed. If you have any questions revolving around sexual violence, you can always call our crisis hotline. As I said before, I'm so glad that you decided to tune in and watch our presentation and get to see all of the information. I know that it was a lot of information all at once, and so feel free to watch it again and share it with your friends. And I hope that you learn something and gain something and that you feel more empowered at the end of the day. I give this presentation every Thursday at 10. So if you would like to see more of our presentations, be sure to turn our notifications on, our post notifications on, and give this video a like and a share, and leave a comment down below. And we will see you next Thursday at 10 a.m. as we talk about ableism. Bye.